This is episode 285, When Gifts Become Trauma: Emotional Invalidation in Relationships. I've been wanting to talk about this for some time. I have referred to myself as having gift trauma for quite some time now, probably since I got into ACA. If you don't know what that is, it's a 12-step recovery fellowship called Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. It's a trauma recovery program where you reparent yourself and you use the 12 steps to recover, and it has absolutely transformed my life. And I'm going to start by talking about my dad. So, my father never knew what we were getting for presents until we opened them in front of him, unless he had something to do with like putting it together or something like that. Well, when my parents were separated my entire sophomore year of high school, that was the first Christmas my father ever bought presents for me. And he gave me skis, boots, poles, and everything you needed to ski, which was over the top in comparison to every other gift I'd ever gotten. I never got gifts like that. And it was pretty clear to me that my dad was trying to buy me. Well, my parents got back together again, and then they got separated again at the end of my senior year and eventually divorced. And then the next time I remember my dad buying me presents, he got me this clothing, which I fucking hated. I now know that it's called preppy. It's just not my style. And of course, I didn't talk directly to my dad about this because that would have been direct communication, which I was capable of and didn't know was a thing. So I talked to my mom and she talked to him, and I was able to take those clothes back. And then he got really pissed off about it. And he was like, I'm sure you bought marijuana with the money from returning those clothes. So I remember bringing the new clothes that I bought into his pharmacy to show him, like, this is what I did with the money. And also, these are the kind of clothes that I wear. Then I remember some years later, I don't remember how long, he gave me these cameo earrings, which I mean, they're beautiful, but they're for like a fucking 80-year-old lady. They were not for me. And so I felt just really invalidated by my dad. He didn't know who I was. This was just more evidence in my mind at the time of him not really giving a shit about who I was, and also giving me the message like, you're not really the daughter that I want. Well, this pattern was carried on through the men I dated over the years. So I'm going to give you three examples that stand out for me that I remember in detail. So in my late 20s, I started dating a guy, maybe my mid 20s. I started dating a guy. I was with him longer than anybody. And this particular season of gift giving that I remember, I was in grad school at the time, and I know he made at least three times as much money as I did because he made really good money and I didn't make shit. And this one particular Christmas, it might have been the first Christmas that we lived together, I showered him with gifts. I'm sure I went into credit card debt. That's what I did. You know, all of my all of my money problems in my life in the past were a result of my codependence. And so he was really into wine, and I got him these like big, huge, beautiful Rydell glasses. And this was around the time when bread machines were coming out, and I bought him a bread machine. And I don't remember what else, but he gave me one present, and it was a gold heart necklace. And I wear silver. And I'm pretty sure he told me this because I know that he was like, "Oh, I just ran in and was like, get me something to give to my girlfriend." So it's like he didn't give a fuck about me. And it was really awkward and weird, especially because he made way more money than me. Um, then some years later, I dated another guy, and he and I actually got connected by a mutual friend just to get laid. And we fell in love like you read about. I now know that he was like my other codependent half. It felt like love at the time. But when I met him, We didn't know that when we first started dating. The first time he came to my house, he brought this gigantic bouquet of flowers and all these presents, having never met me. And, he proceeded to tell me he literally had a black book of women's names and that he always showered them with gifts. He would usually date them every 4 to 6 weeks and wine them and dine them and then leave them and come back weeks later. And even though we fell in love, he stopped dating other people, he would still shower me with gifts. And I remember like one thing in particular, he was giving me these like pajama kind of like loungy pants. And I finally was like, listen, I really don't need any more of these. This is enough. But that's as far as it went. And then I remember at one point he went away. It must have been in the fall because he came back and he gave me this earring and necklace set. And it was an earring and necklace set that was appropriate for like an 8-year-old girl. It was a pumpkin earring and necklace set. And I was like, what is this? And he goes, well, I had to get you something. I'm like, no, actually, you didn't have to get me something. Maybe you felt like you had to, but that was about you, not me. And I just like, this just doesn't make any sense to me. And I may have said to him at the time, look, if you see something that reminds you of me, please get it for me. But just don't get me something just because you feel like you have to. That just doesn't feel right. It feels invalidating. Then the last guy that I dated before I got into recovery, we were together for a little over a year before we moved in together. And I remember our first Christmas. I know obviously we'd exchanged gifts before that, but the first Christmas we lived together, I remember trying to tell him some things that I wanted. He was like, "No, you don't need to tell me. I'm your partner. I should know." And then I was like, "Well, what about a gift card?" He was like, "What? A gift card? That is so cold." I'm like, "Not when you want one, because if you give me a gift card, I can get whatever the fuck I want." And he was like, "Not going to happen." Well, what I remember him giving me that Christmas was a cover for my iPad and some socks, which, by the way, he forgot to give me the socks on Christmas Day. And this is from a man who, in his mind, should know what to get me. So I just put up with that shit. I just complained about it, maybe to them, probably to everybody else. I got upset about it. I acted like, there's nothing I can do about it. As you can see, I also at times like went overboard with the gift giving. I really only gave one example of that, but I did that many times. And, that shows my codependence, that, I gave gifts, especially when they were outside of my budget. I was afraid to speak up about what was okay with me and not okay. And I didn't have boundaries because, I said something once and then didn't say it again and acted like it was up to them to fucking conform. And that's not really what boundaries are. So I do remember at one time, years before I got into recovery, going to my friends and saying, listen, I am no longer going to exchange gifts with my friends. I feel like I have to get you something and I scrounge for something and it just doesn't feel right. And literally all my friends were like, "Oh my God, yes, that's so good. Thank you for saying that." And I do remember at that point saying to them, listen, if you see something and it reminds you of me and you think I would love it and it's in your budget, absolutely get it for me. But don't get me something because it's my birthday or Christmas or you feel like you're supposed to. So fast forward, I get into recovery, and one of the people that I was closest with, she was in my step group, was always buying me gifts. Every time she came to my house, she brought something, like even for like a step group meeting. And I'm talking like not like a bouquet of flowers. Like one time she bought me this beautiful little framed mirror that was like carved and it had a bird on it and it was just gorgeous. And then another time she brought a casserole dish with food in it and was like, the dish is for you. And it was like a really nice one. And I think it was maybe the dish that I was like, you know what? I got to be honest with you. I'm starting to feel uncomfortable that every single time you come to my house, you bring me a gift. It doesn't feel right. It feels like it sets me up to be obligated to give you gifts. And I'm just not going to, I mean, I might give you a gift from time to time, but I'm not giving you a gift every time to come to your house. And honestly, there's a part of me that feels like you're trying to buy me. And she was really fucking pissed off and offended by that. But we processed it and she realized that's what she was doing because she grew up in a really wealthy family. She literally had a drawer of money that she could go to. And to her, were love. And so she wanted to receive gifts and she wanted to give people gifts. And again, I remember saying to her, listen, if you see something and it says Barb to you, go ahead and get it for me, but don't do this. Well, now I am in my first and only healthy relationship with my sweetheart, and he is helping me heal in the gift department. Now, before I talk about that, the reason that I call this trauma, gift trauma, is that it's part of what I call the drip, drip, drip of emotional invalidation, which is the main form of trauma that I experienced in my family. So if you're not familiar with this particular type of trauma, it's often called relational trauma, sometimes little t trauma. So it's not from a blunt incident, it's from something that happens in the context of a relationship over time. And it's basically being emotionally abandoned by the people around you. And so my relationship with my sweetheart is actually healing this for me. So he and I started dating October 8th. And so our first Christmas, we'd only been together for like 2.5 months. And I really don't even remember what we said, if we said anything about gifts, but he got me this beautiful down coat. And I still love it. And I feel so loved and warm in it. And he got it for me. He's an outdoorsman. He knows good quality clothing and apparel that helps you stay warm and all that stuff. And he knows that I'm always fucking cold. And so he also got me a blanket that said, "This is my Hallmark movie watching blanket." And he got me a pair of socks that when you look at the bottom of the feet, it says, "If you can see this, I'm watching my Hallmark movies." And in case you don't know this, I'm a big, huge Hallmark movie fan. And so I felt cared for, loved, and validated. Like he sees me, he knows who I am, and he wants me to be warm. And so that was really lovely. And then after that, I told him, like, I don't feel like we need to exchange gifts for things like anniversaries and Valentine's Day and birthdays. I would like us to exchange gifts on Christmas. There's something about like opening presents on Christmas morning. But again, if you see something that says Barb and you want to get it for me, go ahead. So that's basically how we operate in the gift giving department. And I love it when he surprises me with something out of the blue. It makes me feel really special and like he's thinking of me. Whereas, if he's always getting me something for my birthday, he does sometimes, but sometimes he doesn't. And we exchange cards on our anniversary. And anyway, so the second Christmas is rolling around and he comes to me and he says, "Listen, I'm not gonna knock it out of the park this Christmas. I have no fucking idea what to get you. I'm lost." And I was like, "You're in luck." It just so happens that I had a couple weeks before that gotten in the mail a catalog from the Southwest Indian Foundation. And I love catalogs and I look through them all the time. But for some reason with this particular catalog, I took a black magic marker and went through and circled all the things that I loved in it, and I set it aside. And it was like, like I'm probably never going to buy any of these things. And I said to him, "You're in luck. Here's a catalog with a shitload of things circled that I love. There's a wide variety of types of items. There's a wide variety of prices. I don't even remember what I circled. So if you get me anything from here that's circled, I'm going to love it. And I'm going to be surprised. And you can spend, whatever it's in your budget." And he was thrilled to be able to do that because he didn't have to think. He wants to give me gifts that I want, but he's like, "I can't, like, I don't want it to be like a test." Because in his marriages that he had, that's sort of how like he felt like he was getting tested and failing all the time. And I was like, not only that, you don't have to remember dates. I'm going to remind you of the dates. I'm not going to make it mean that you don't fucking love me if you can't remember when my birthday is or when our anniversary is or any of that stuff. And so now what I actually do is, rather than give him a catalog with things circled, is as the year goes along, if I see things in a catalog that I really like, I grab the URL of them online and put them into a Word doc. And then a little while before Christmas, send him a list and say, get whatever you want from this list for me. And then he usually gets me something else. Like last Christmas, he got me some of the things that I wanted. And of course, I'm always surprised because I don't fucking remember what's on the list. And I always love them because I pick them out. But he also got me a new bicycle helmet, which is really cute. And it's so fitting because he's my bicycle person and he takes care and maintains my bike for me. And he's also Mr. Safety. So it makes total sense. And so I feel like I'm being healed by this because I'm able to have open and direct communication with him in a way that I just wasn't capable of in my other relationships. I feel heard and seen by him. And it really has helped me come out of victim mentality, out of my codependent patterns. And so I'm sharing all this to let you know that there are many ways to be traumatized, and it could happen from gift giving. And also, like, it's not just the gift giving where I got emotionally invalidated in those relationships. This is just representative of that. But if this sounds familiar to you and you're in relationship with someone who is emotionally invalidating you with gifts, it's time to have a conversation with that person, and another conversation and another if you need to. And if they just won't hear you or just won't get on board with making you feel validated, then maybe they're not the right person for you. Or maybe if it's only gift giving and every other area of the relationship is great, then let it go and buy your own damn gifts. So I call this let go of your expectations of others and meet your own needs. Learning that concept was a fucking game changer for me. And I actually believe I have another episode about that. I will check and make sure. And if I do, I'll make sure I put it in the show notes. But you do not have to stay in relationships with people who continually invalidate you, whether it has to do with gifts or not. And I think I will end it with that. Again, I'll share this quote: let go of your expectations of others and meet your own needs. If you feel like you don't know how to be in your life, or maybe even how to be in your feelings, if you don't know what it's like to be situated within yourself or how to be in relationships or organizations, it's probably because you're super focused on others and everything outside of you. If that's you, you're probably also really generous with your time, but it's killing you. You are the perfect candidate for Boundaries by Design, a blueprint for your life. This is an 8-week structured course for women. Your blueprint for life will be co-created for you personally. I'll give you the framework, coaching, and guidance. Then you'll fill in what's right for you. It'll be based on what matters to you most. It will be like having a manual for your life. You'll know where you end and others begin, what's your responsibility and what's not, what you like, want, need, and prefer. You won't go seeking outside yourself for validation and affirmation. You'll get it from sticking to your blueprint. Go to higherpowercc.com/boundariesbydesign or check out the link in my Instagram bio. If you like this podcast, and I'm guessing you did because you're still listening, you will also love my weekly newsletter, Friday Fragments, which has short essays similar to the podcast. You can check it out at fridayfragments.news. That's fridayfragments.news. If you haven't already subscribed to my podcast on your favorite podcast outlet, please do that. It helps carry the message to more people. I started this podcast because there was so much wisdom in recovery that just wasn't making its way out into the world. So I want as many people as possible to hear it. I'd also love it if you'd leave a 5-star rating or a review, which you can do on Apple Podcasts. It helps other people find it so they can get the benefits that you've gotten from listening. If someone in particular came to mind when you listen to this episode, please share it with them. And my favorite place to hang out on social media is Instagram. I'm at Higher Power Coaching. Please DM me there. I'd love to hear what you got from this episode. I run private and group coaching programs on building healthy boundaries. Whether you need help with boundaries in your personal, professional, or romantic life, I can help. Head on over to barbchat.net where you can get on my calendar for a free 30-minute Better Boundaries consultation. I also do short-term situational coaching to help people make it through specific situations they're going through, such as divorce, empty nesting, preparing for retirement, or any phase where their identity is shifting. Regardless of the type of coaching, my ideal client is someone who is ripe for change. If that's you, I'd love to work with you. My goal with all my work is to help you make lasting changes in your life, like I've made deep, lasting changes in my life. Remember, it's never too late to recover. No one is beyond hope, and healing is possible. Thanks for listening.